we take a look at problems 18 and 19, we're going to use the method complete the square. So we take a look at 18. Okay. There's no number for the x squared, so we don't need to divide. So we can go ahead and move that 134 over. So whatever the constant is, move it over to the other side. Okay. So then we're left with x squared minus 12x, and then put a box. Is equal to negative 134 plus a box. And then you have to remember to square your boxes. To fill in your boxes, what you have to do is divide your middle number, which is negative 12, divide it by 2. And that gives us negative 6. So that's going to go in each one of our boxes. By doing that, that helps us factor. Okay? Make your two parentheses. This is like saying x times x. So there's two x's in the front. We can separate them. This is like saying negative 6 times negative 6. So there's two negative 6 in the back. So we can separate them. That's why it's really important. Whatever sign the middle number is, that's the sign that that number in the box is. So if the middle number is negative, the number in the box is going to be negative. And then you plug that in your calculator. You're going to do negative 134 plus negative 6 squared. And you have to be very careful when you do that. You have to put negative 6 in parentheses. If you don't, you're going to get the wrong answer. So you're going to get negative 134 plus negative 6 squared. Make sure you put that in parentheses. It gives you negative 98. Okay. So then if we take our next step, we can condense this down right at once with a square. Because when you're multiplying the same thing by itself, you can write it once in square. And that's equal to negative 98. Well, what we can do is square root to get rid of that square. And we're left with x minus 6 is equal to, look at your radical. We have a negative underneath our radical, so we can take out an I, and that 98 becomes positive. So when we look at our radical off to the side, we have to simplify it if we can. So I'm going to write I radical 98 off to the side. Okay? The largest perfect square that can go into 98 is 49. And you can go in there 2 times. Sometimes you can simplify this radical, sometimes you can't. Also, there's a coefficient with that I, so you have to put everything in parentheses. So keep simplifying. The square root of 49 is 7. Can't take the square root of 2, so we tack it on. And then we have to multiply. We're going to do I times 7, which is 7I, radical 2. So this now replaces that. So we're going to get x minus 6 is equal to 7I radical 2. But we took the square root, so we have to remember to put our plus or minus sign. Okay? And then, to get x by itself, we have one more step. We have to add 6 to both sides. And that 6 is going to go right in front of that plus or minus sign. So 6 plus or minus 7I radical 2. Okay? Ask yourself, can we combine 6 and 7I radical 2 in our calculator and get a whole number? And that answer is no. So we leave it. And there's our final answer. Okay, if you need to pause, because I'm going to erase a large chunk of this so I can write the next problem. But pause so you can get everything down before I erase some of it. I'm going to erase this stuff off to the side where I simplify the radical. Okay. Got room to write for the next one. Okay. So we take a look at 19. 19 is the same thing. We're completing the square, but there's a number in front of that x squared. So what we have to do is divide everything by that number. So it cancels. We're left with x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, so now that we got rid of that number, we can do exactly what we did in problem 18. Move the constant over. So we're left with x squared minus 2x plus a box is equal to 5 plus a box. Always remember, square your boxes. And then to fill in your boxes, you take your new middle number, which is -2, and divide it by 2, cut it in half, and you get -1. And make sure you carry the sign. The middle number is negative, so the number in your box has to be negative. Then we're going to use that factoring shortcut. Make your 2 parentheses. I have 2 x's in the front, so I separate them. I have 2 negative ones in the back, so I separate those. Plug this in your calculator, but when we do, you have to remember to put parentheses around that negative. So when you do 5 plus -1 squared in your calculator, you should get 6. We can condense this down. We're multiplying something by itself, so we can write it once with the square. And then solve for x. In order to solve for x, we have to square root both sides. To get rid of that square, that breaks this free, and you're just left with x minus 1 is equal to radical 6. You can't take the square root of 6, you can't simplify it any further, there's no perfect square that can go into 6, so you just leave it as radical 6. We did take the square root though, so you have to remember your plus or minus sign. Okay. Our final step to get x by itself, you add the 1, so we get x is equal to, that 1 jumps right in front of that plus or minus sign, radical 6. Again, ask yourself, can I plug 1 and radical 6? Can I combine those in my calculator and get a whole number? And the answer is no. So you just leave it like that. That is your answer.